Happy Saturday. Right now it's around 9:30 p.m. And first and foremost, I just want to say a big thank you, right, to all your participation, your engagement, and your reactions, right? Because this is something I always dream of building, a community where we can all learn and grow together. And I've been doing this for the last 5 years, right? You can scroll back all the way to 2020. And so far we have grown to more than 10,000 people. So keep it going, right? I really want to share as much as possible so that hopefully all of us minimally whether you're a student or not, it doesn't matter. I want all of us to pass math. That is the first and foremost, right, objective that I have when I create this community. Okay, so in today's guide, we are looking at careless mistake. So careless mistake is something very dear to me because when I was a student, right, I studied really hard. I'm a very, very hardworking student, but yet at the same time, I'm always very disappointed by the grades I get back because I make so much careless mistake, right? So you can see earlier on when you all did the poll, right, more than 40% of you mentioned that, hey, I lost 7 or more marks in my WA1, which is such a waste, right? Because just imagine right now you're failing. With that 7 marks, you could have passed. Or right now you're scoring a B4 or B3. With that 7 marks, you have gotten a distinction, right? So these few marks is really, really important, especially when it comes to the national exams, right? The A1, A2, B3, right? What separates those students is these marks, the careless mistakes. And if you were to be able to avoid these mistakes, then you're going to get your distinction. Then you're going to get your A1. All right. So therefore, I want to dedicate this, guide to specifically talk about careless mistakes. And just to share, typically this is a full 2 hours lesson, right, with all of our graduating students before they walk into the O-level examination hall. But I'm going to condense everything, right, into just a few minutes. And more importantly, just teach you one method, right, because there's so many different strategies that I've created over the years. But I'm not gonna overwhelm you all with so many things, just one strategy today. Okay, so let me slowly build up the context before I teach you all the method. So the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because when I was a student, right, when I get back my exam script, right, teachers' comments will say, please be more careful, right? You're so careless. Or my mom will always say, right, go and check your work, right? Why you never check? Why are you so careless? Right. So these are all the comments that we receive. But the weird thing is no one really teach us how to avoid careless mistakes, right? Everyone knows how to say, hey, be more careful, be more careful. But no one is really out there, right, to teach you a framework or method to avoid these mistakes. And therefore, I spent the last few years, right, designing this entire process to help our students to avoid careless mistake, right? Which I feel is really, really important because if, back to the thing that I just mentioned earlier on, with these 5 to 7 marks, grades can easily, right, be improved. Okay, so I went on a journey, right, to research and ask myself, right, how do we develop frameworks to avoid careless mistake? And one of the author that I came across is this guy who is a doctor. His name is Atul Gawande. And he written a book called Careless Manifesto. So if any of you are interested, you can go and pick this book. Okay, but basically the whole idea is humans inherently, we make careless mistakes, regardless of whatever profession. So you can see over here, pilots, careless mistakes, right? As a result, plane crashes, people die. In the middle, women wakes up from a surgery to find out that doctor operated on the wrong leg. How can this happen? Correct. But this is literally a real life case study, right? On the right side, which is something that happened recently. Some of you have seen it on the news. Citigroup, a banker, credited 109 trillion into a client's account instead of $378. So I can see, regardless of any profession, regardless of age, right, regardless of gender, careless mistakes are happening on a day-to-day basis, right? So we cannot just fault students that say, hey, you're so careless, right? Go and be more careful. That doesn't work. But what we want is a system, right, to avoid careless mistake, which is what this author was talking about. So he went on to study, right, different professions and realized that, hey, pilots, they have a checklist because with this checklist, now you have a system to avoid mistakes, right? Before you start your engine, what do you need to check? When you land, what's going to happen? And then after which, when you're parking, what are you looking out for? Similarly, for doctors, if you go and look at the surgical checklist, right, they are checking, am I operating on the correct patient? Am I operating on the correct parts of the body, right? Is this person allergic to any medicine, right? Do I have all my teams there, etc., etc.? So you can see that there is literally a check-by-check, step-by-step process to avoid mistakes, right? So that's the whole big idea. Now, continuing, right, and transiting to mathematics, okay? Today, I'm going to teach you a method that I hope you all can write it down, okay, which is called CUTQ, okay? Once you all have watched this video, please leave a comment in the, in the text CUTQ so that I know you all have watched this video. What does CUTQ stand for? So let's go through one by one. And earlier on, right, I mentioned that there are 4 types of careless mistakes, right, that we all will make in the exam, right? And therefore, this method CUTQ, right, solves each of them directly. So the first one, which is something that we are all very, very familiar with, and that's the most basic one, which is calculation. Okay, calculation. So you can see over here, right, if you were to zoom in later on your screen, you can see that students calculated wrongly, expanded wrongly, right? On the right, you can see 3x less or equals to 2, but instead of writing 2/3, the student writes 3/2. So you can see this calculation error. So how to avoid calculation error, right? Simply, we all will be using our calculator, right, to check line by line, right, to make sure that we don't make mistakes, okay? Whether it's a, expansion error or whether it's a calculation, right? Using our calculator, you punch in something wrongly. Now, this is something that you're all familiar with, right? So let's move on to the next one. Now, the next one, after C, it's U, and U is units/accuracy. So earlier on, y'all can see that I sent a photo, right, which is on accuracy, where the question requires 2 decimal places, but the student left it in significant figures, right? And of course, you can see over here, the question asked for 2SF, but the student, didn't leave in 2SF. And of course, for units, right, there's even more different areas, right, and across different chapters: degree versus radian, seconds, minutes, hours, dollars and cents, cm, meters, and kilometers. So that's the next thing that I'm looking at in a particular question. First, I check the calculation. Next, I check the units. Now, next, T. Now, T stands for transfer, right? Whether you transfer the number correctly from the question to your working, and from your working to the answer. So you can see these are 2 examples over here where the student on the left miss out on negative, and on the right side, misread the handwriting. Okay, so transfer and seeing something wrongly. So you can see over here, back last year in October, right, all my students, we all came together and then we compiled, hey, these are the common handwriting, right, errors, whereby 9 you see as a Q, T see as a plus, Z and a 2, B and a 6, 5 and an S, A and a 9, X and multiply, X and an N, 5 and a 3. So you can see these are all due to handwriting, right? And after which you transferred your numbers wrongly. Okay, so that's for T. Last but not the least, we have question types. Now, question types is, for instance, they want an equation of the line of symmetry, but you didn't leave an equation. In HCF LCM, they ask for index notation, but you go and calculate it out. And then over here, question type in statistics, when we want to find our median, we need to arrange in the ascending order, but this student failed to recognize that. So you can see over here, right, question type, in every single chapter, there are specific things that we want to look out for. For instance, like in proportions, right, we have percentage increase, percentage decrease, change, right, etc. In speed time graph, we have acceleration, deceleration, the plus and the negative. So in every single chapter, there is these specific things that we want to look out for and what the question requires you, right, or how they would want you to present your final answer. And therefore, we should go and compile and know how to, present our final solution. Okay, so all in all, right, you can see now, with this technique, how you're going to apply it? When you are checking your work, you're no longer just checking line by line and just randomly. When you look at a question, you're running through these 4 things. Number 1, is there any calculation error, right? So you go and calculate and go and check your expansion, simplifying process, etc. Number 2, you're checking your units, right? Did they ask for DPs or SF? Okay, then after that, or is it in degree, is it in finance, or more importantly, right, is it CM, meters, KM, dollars and cents, degree, radian in terms of pi, etc. Right? So that's on the units. You can check that specifically. Next, transfer, right? Did you transfer the values correctly? Is your handwriting clear, etc.? That's on transfer. And question type, depending on the chapter itself, right? You're looking at, hey, go and circle it. Is it on percentage change, percentage increase, or is it on, index notation versus value? So we are looking at what are the specific requirements asked by the examiner. Now with that, you can see now it changes the whole approach when you are checking your work. You are no longer just lost checking line by line, but what you're doing is, hey, CUTQ, CUTQ, CUTQ. And I'm pretty confident if you go through the CUTQ process in a whole paper, okay, or you go and take out your WA1 right now, and you know that it's a careless mistake, right? Ask yourself, if you run through this CUTQ concept, would you have saved a few more marks? And if the answer is yes, this video is worth it. Okay, so CUTQ, please remember it, and hope it helps you in your next upcoming examinations. Okay, and I hope this guide helped. If it's helpful, leave in the comment down below, CUTQ. Okay, I catch y'all. Take care. Good night and enjoy your Saturday.